let's do some leveling, okay? I've got no loot filter here. We're playing a primalist. I do have my notes pulled up because I planned on recording this for a long time and I just never did. So we're going to level with Maelstrom. Maelstrom is not like the only way to level. You can level with all sorts of things like swipe or upheaval. And I'm planning on playing Serpent Strike this upcoming weekend, so I'm probably going to swap to that as soon as I can. But for right now, we are playing in just like a softcore standard character. And I'm not going to use my gold, I'm not going to use my stash, but I want to show you how I level with a spell-based Maelstrom build. So we're going to look for like spell damage, LE damage over time, things like that. I like pulling the enemies over here toward this log because I feel like it's really easy to kill them as soon as they stand there. So let's do that. We'll keep going. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to spec swipe as a mana generator. And then we will we'll be using Maelstrom as often as we can. Having a nice two-handed axe early in the game is a nice way of chunking monsters, dealing a bunch of damage because they have so much flat damage on them already. So we're going to spec swipe. Swipe's going to be our damage for a while. We'll use it as a mana generator later on. And then we will, what do you call it? We will use Warcry as an additional way of casting even more Maelstroms. Let's attack these mages down here because they give so much experience. And then we'll just keep running. Wow, look at that. We killed like 3 monsters. Already hit level 3. One of the early game decisions you need to make is which unique item you're going to get for your quest. You can either get Avarice Gloves or you can get Gambler's Fallacy. Normally you'd go Gambler's Fallacy. It's a pretty good one. You generally only take Avarice if you have a very particular reason to do it. We could take Avarice. If you were going to play like a Maelstrom endgame build, well, Maelstrom is spell elemental damage over time, and maybe you want that. You know, it is what it is. We're going to take some points in attunement because they give us some hybrid resistance. Strength and minion health is fine too. I just really value that resistance early on, and I'm going to want that later on no matter what. I think you can tank all this damage and he'll drop some potions for you, so I'm not too concerned about it. Damage over time? Nope, don't need that. So, when we're playing this build, one thing that we'll want to use is a loot filter in order to find some nice early game stuff. We'll be looking for a spear, and then we'll be looking for, or sorry, not a spear. We'll be looking for a staff, and specifically whichever staves have the most adaptive damage as the implicit. So staves have a little bit of attack damage on them as well, so that you can bonk somebody over the head. But because we're going to be using Maelstrom, which is a spell, and swipe as a mana generator, we kind of get like the best of both worlds. There's our swipe, excellent. And then it auto-populates our right click, which is great. We're going to spec into swipe right now. And I'm going to start grabbing the mana nodes as soon as possible. Technically, you can get more damage by going to the bottom right of the swipe tree. But I value having swipe as a mana generator as soon as possible. So we're going to be grabbing Maelstrom at 12. We're 5 right now. We got a little bit ways to go. So as soon as we get here, we're just going to keep going. Let's do this. And we're going to do the side quest, TP back, and then we'll just keep going. So that we have our unique gloves as soon as possible. Let's go like this. We're still looking out for a staff if we can find one here. So the second skill we're going to spec is, you guessed it, Maelstrom. And the third skill that we're going to spec after that will be Maelstrom eventually. Oh, sorry, will be Warcry. In my notes, I wrote down, make liberal use of Thorn Totem. Apparently past me thought that was important. Maybe I should. Another skill spec. So we've just dinged level 8. We have another skill specialization available to ourselves. Nothing is going to be of too much consequence. We could just spec into Thorn Totem in order to have it deal a little bit more damage. We could just spec into Wolf. Give him some extra attack speed. But nothing's going to be too consequential. So I'm not going to worry about that. Another thing that we would be looking for around this time is... what is this? An attack speed. Attack speed amulet. I'll take it. Another thing that we would be looking for around this time is void resistance, right? We're not playing a sentinel, so we don't get free void res. Fizz and void are the most important early on. Followed shortly thereafter by necrotic resistance around level 25 after you get your Maelstrom. Hey, look at that. We already found some spell damage. Spell damage and mana regeneration. That is not a bad thing to have at a low level. Let's try to get one more level. And because we're so close to that level 12 mark, we're only about one level away. Let's see if we can kill some of these monsters here. There's our Maelstrom. Let's go and make a little swap. Let's go Maelstrom like this. And I'm going to start getting these beneath the wave nodes on the left. I call these the Lagon nodes. Then we're going to put our Lagon right... let's put our Lagon right here on W because I like that. And why are we using a staff? Well, let's see. 4, 8 adaptive. Ooh, we already have an 8 adaptive implicit. What a great staff I have there. The highest amount of damage for the implicit is what matters most to us. So we're going to go ahead and take that. So I said we're going to take the Lagon nodes. And the reason for the Lagon nodes is that they let us kind of play with an unleashed playstyle. If you're familiar with Path of Exile. So we get to like swipe 2 or 3 times and then, you know, cast 5 or 4 Maelstroms at the same time. As long as we can potion once, we're probably good to go. Ooh, we froze him as well. How fortunate. So we have this nice AoE damage that's going all the time. If we run out of mana, we pop our swipe, because our swipe, remember, is our mana generator, right? You'll see that right above my skill bar, there's that little, it looks like a tiny little tornado that pops up every second or so, right? So every time that that pops up, you kind of get in a rhythm for it. But every time it pops up, I'm going to cast my Maelstrom. So you see how I'm like W right click, W right click, W right click. And then every time that I'm Wing for my Maelstrom, it's actually giving me 2 stacks of Maelstrom. So right now we're like W right click, W right click. But in the future, it'll be more like W right right, W right right. Because we'll need to spend more time in between our casts. If you don't like those Lagon nodes, what you could do instead... oh, look at that. 78 spell damage. Not bad. Is you could beeline it for the Frenzy and Haste nodes. On the top side of Maelstrom. Let's see. Our 3rd skill becomes available at 20. Remember, our 3rd skill is going to be Warcry. And the first thing that we'll do with Warcry is pick up 250% increased cold damage. And then later on, we'll be speccing it into the cooldown node in order to make it happen faster. And then ultimately, we'll be using Warcry in order to proc more Maelstroms as well. Now with our swipe, we already have all of our mana generation nodes, which feels great. We've got 2 options here. We can either spec it over toward the kill threshold, or we can grab the percent increased global damage. I think I like this node here. This is what I would recommend. I think after you grab the attack speed nodes, I think it's called Aspect of the Panther, then I would move over and start getting the kill threshold. That's probably around level 30 or so, and that's going to be farther than we go right now. Whoa. But that would be my recommendation to you. Once my mana feels good, once I can like get some mana regeneration, and I don't feel like I'm using swipe anymore, swipe really is only there for like mana generation. Around like level 30, 32, you can spec into the kill threshold nodes as well. But as soon as you're done with that, you can start speccing into like whatever skill you're going to use later on. So for example, if you were to transition into like a Serpent Strike build, maybe you spec into Serpent Strike even though you're not using it right now. You could spec into, I don't know, maybe you're playing a Druid and you want to play a Werebear build. So as soon as you get your mastery here, you could spec into Werebear, and maybe you're not using Werebear right now, but you could still spec into it. So when I'm doing leveling like this, I use my 4th and my 5th skill slot in order to level up the skills that I'm going to be using later. And then these first 3 skill slots, they might very well change. Because these are notes that I made quite a while ago with the intent of recording some kind of video, but I just never really got around to it. So this is how I like leveling as a primalist. You're going to level as like swipe early on, and then into spell damage, cold damage, elemental damage over time, making use of a staff that has as much adaptive damage on the implicit as possible. I would recommend using Avarice gloves, especially if you're planning on using Maelstrom late game, because you want some kind of like spell damage leeches life before you can get your blessing for it much later on. And then just these kinds of things are what you'd be looking for. Initially, your Warcry is going to be used for cold damage, and then the cooldown node, and then as your mana and mana regeneration permits, you could spec into Warcry, procking Maelstrom for additional stacks for you. So this is what I would be recommending to you. This is what I'll post in the video as well. If you have any questions, you can always leave them in the comment section of the video, or you can just drop by Twitch live. So, hope that helps.